As the nation continues to grapple with COVID-19 and social justice, a lot of people are asking what businesses should be doing to help solve complex problems. It's called corporate social responsibility, or CSR. And one of the companies with a well-known spokesduck is taking a special interest. Zoe Anderson has the story.
Corporate social responsibility initiatives, or CSR, have long reflected a company's values and priorities. In light of current events, a new CSR study by AFLAC found that the way consumers and business executives view the role of business in solving social issues is changing.
This is the sixth year that AFLAC has fielded this survey, and the results are fascinating, particularly because we fielded it after the pandemic. One of the more interesting findings had to do with generational differences in terms of perceptions of the workplace post-COVID. For example, 75% of baby boomers would be willing to take a pay cut in order to save jobs across the board in their companies, where only 50% of millennials and Gen Xers would be more likely to do so.
Dave Armand, CEO of 3BL Media, a leader in helping global companies like AFLAC build and deliver purpose-driven communications, says that regularly surveying consumers' feelings about corporate responsibility gives AFLAC a leg up on knowing what is making people stop and think about social responsibility and environmental, social, and governance issues, or ESG.
Now more than ever, corporate transparency on environmental, social, and governance issues is critical. Consumers care about this deeply, as this research from AFLAC tells us, but so do employees when deciding where they want to work. And investors. Much more money has been flowing into ESG investment funds this year versus the broader stock market.
For more information about corporate social responsibility, visit aflac.com/ACSR. And for more information about 3BL Media, go to 3blmedia.com.